Welcome back to my channel. On this episode, video, recording, whatever you want to call it, I will be reverse engineering how I got my job by leveraging tools like LinkedIn, social media, and personal branding. And I am doing this because I have recently started a series on my social media platforms called Creating Your Calling Card. And the idea behind it is, my theory about personal branding is that it should be organic and authentic to who you are in real life. Your digital presence should merely be an extension of how you are in person. And I thought by going through my own story and applying what I've shared in my calling card series, or at least the first post that I've shared with my calling card series, and then applying my own story to it to show what I mean whenever I'm sharing these, would be very helpful. Essentially, we're reverse engineering how I got this job that I have now. For a little context, I graduated from law school December of 2023. I sat for the bar exam February of 2024, got my results in April of 2024, and then subsequently was sworn in both in federal and state court. Right after getting sworn in, I really didn't think that I was going to be a practicing lawyer, which feels a little silly to say out loud, but I think I was so burned out and lacking in a lot of confidence and personal security from going through law school that I just really felt like I'm not going to be good at this, so why even bother? And the job search certainly didn't help. At the time, I was working a few odd jobs. I was basically law clerking part-time for a local IP law firm, and then I was also ghostwriting and doing personal branding coaching for lawyers. Then I had a very serendipitous discussion with a female attorney who the second I met her, I was just like, wow, you are who I want to be, obviously my own version of that, but she had a strong family life, strong faith life, a strong practice. She seemed very secure and happy with the work that she was doing. And I had a light bulb moment, like, that's where I feel like I need to be. Like, that is what I feel like I need to be working towards. Here are the 3 things that I would recommend you to do whenever you start branding yourself or leveraging social media or branding to get your next job. Number 1, you have to ask yourself, what is the worst case scenario? What is the worst thing that could happen by putting myself out there, by posting on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok? What is the worst thing that could happen trying to reach a goal? And the answer to that, to most of these, scenarios that we come up with in our minds, is you get ignored, you get rejected, you start back at, the starting point. None of those scenarios are complete failures. You just have to keep going. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. It is nerve-wracking to put yourself out there. What if I make a mistake? What if I get judged or critiqued? Those are all thoughts that I had. I knew that I also wanted to work in intellectual property. I wanted to be surrounded by people who loved art, cultural heritage, discussing things like trademarks and copyrights. And the best way that I could do that, even though I didn't have it in person necessarily, was to find that community online. And so when I started committing to building out my LinkedIn and branding myself, the biggest fear that I had was, what can I talk about? Like, I'm just a law student. I don't know anything. I don't want to share something and then be wrong and have potential employers or potential mentors or coworkers or whoever look at me like, oh, she's an idiot, like, or she's unethical for, posting here when she has no idea what she's talking about. But the reason it's good to know what is the worst case scenario, which for me was losing credibility or losing trust with people who could be future employers or future coworkers, was recognizing that I'm not going to post a subject then that I haven't done enough research to talk about, if that makes sense. And so when you're asking yourself, what is the worst case scenario? You also need to think about, hypothetically, okay, let's say the worst case scenario happened. What am I going to do? What will I do to move on? Will I completely quit? It's a good mental exercise because one, when you list out all the worst case scenarios, you realize like, okay, it's really not that bad. It's nothing that I haven't encountered before, which is really what I want to get at. And two, most of the mistakes that are going to be made in your branding journey or when you start posting on social media is that you just recognize that you made a mistake. You apologize if that situation is called for. You edit whatever it was you posted or you repost explaining the mistake, and then you move on. For most people, that is going to be like the worst that could happen. Being able to write down, this is the worst case scenario for me, also points to what your values are. So if you are like me, your worst fear was that someone would think that you are stupid or maybe unethical for posting on something that you're still learning about, i.e. intellectual property. My value then is credibility. I want to be a credible writer, a credible voice. So therefore, whenever I go to post about intellectual property, I'm going to make sure that I research whatever it is I'm writing on specifically accurately. So that way the information I am giving is accurate to the best of my ability. And that is why sitting down and asking yourself, what is the worst case scenario? It can really help you, one, get over your initial fear of posting and personal branding. And two, it can also help you go ahead and create your guideposts, which are your values. A lot of people don't like personal branding because it feels icky, which I totally understand. You don't want to come off as salesy because you wouldn't be salesy in real life. Knowing what your values are, those are your guideposts. So for example, I'm not a dancer. I rarely dance in real life. So you're not going to see me make a dancing TikTok or a dancing reel. That's just not who I am. It's not within my comfort zone. I'm all for people stepping outside of their comfort zone, but when you are just starting on this journey, it's better to start where you're at and not make this more difficult than it needs to be, right? And it's also about, you want to do what's authentic and true to you. That would not be true to me if I started posting dancing videos. So that's why I don't do it. There are some people, it is true to their brand, it is true to who they are, and therefore they do it. That's great. But post within your values, post within your guideposts. Second, what do you want to get out of your personal brand? One way I like to break this down is short-term, midterm, and long-term goals. So again, back in 2L year, middle of law school, I really wanted to make sure that I could get another great internship that was paid. So that was my short-term goal. Midterm was that I wanted to be employed out of law school, or as soon as possible out of law school. I wanted to have a paid job I wanted to have a job in intellectual property. And then my long-term goal, which still is my long-term goal, I wanted to build a very deep understanding of intellectual property law. Like I wanted to be, and still want to be, someone that people can go to understand IP and the law more. Each of those goals, once I had them written down and I knew what they were, those are now my pillars. You've probably heard a lot of social media managers or content creators who their whole brand is helping other people with social media. They'll tell you you need to have your pillars, and your pillars are the main core subjects that you write about consistently or post about consistently. So for me, by figuring out what my goals were, I turned those into my pillars, because that way each time I'm posting, I am basically building credibility for each of those areas. And two, I'm putting out into the world what I want to receive. So for example, 2L year, again, middle of law school, I'm looking for my final internship. I wanted something paid. I wanted something ideally in the DC area. And I wanted something within the realm of what I was interested in. So intellectual property, technology, that kind of thing. I found that just by posting. I posted about being a law student, searching for internships, the experiences I've had so far, what kind of things I was looking for, the areas that I was interested in, such as intellectual property or data privacy or whatever it may be. Sure enough, I get a message one day from someone in my network saying, hey, I know someone whose legal intern that they had signed up can't do it anymore. Would you be interested in this? It's a paid internship. It was in the DC area, and I also got to work remotely. So I was able to travel to DC, but primarily work from home, which was great for budgeting purposes. All that to say, I put out into the world what I was looking for, and it gave it back to me. And I think that's really key. Whenever you're building your brand, if you're looking for a job, if you're trying to be an expert in an area, whatever it may be, you need to be writing about that. One, because that's what you're going through. It's an honest part of the journey that you're on right now, so why not share it? And two, the whole point of networking and branding is to build relationships and reach your goals. And so when you put out into the world, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm trying to do, at some point, the more consistent you are, the more that you are giving in your content and, educating people, sharing with people, at some point it will come back to you. And that every experience I've had with personal branding so far, that has been true. Something I said in my calling card series post, people can't help you if they don't know you need help. The world can't give you what it doesn't know that you want. And it's the same principle here. So whatever goals you're working towards, try building in public. You don't have to share every little detail about your life or what you're doing. There's still room for privacy, but it goes a long way putting out into the world and saying, hey, I want to be really good at this, or hey, I am really trying to find a job with these characteristics. You never know who is lurking on your profiles, and they may have the exact piece of information you've been needing, but they can't tell you that if they don't know that that's what you're looking for. Finally, what is your path of least resistance? Again, don't make this harder than it needs to be. My 2 year of law school, I was already lurking on LinkedIn. I was interested in the platform. It seemed very helpful. There were a lot of lawyers that I was following, and I was taking notes on their posts and networking, commenting, sending messages. And so it just made sense to, post myself. Like, why not me? Why not just start chronicling my journey as a law student who is trying to break into the intellectual property industry? That's what I did. And I think it goes a long way taking a moment and thinking, okay, I know what my values are. I know what my goals / pillars are. So I know what I want to talk about, how I want to present myself to people. Now the question is, how are you going to do it? What medium will you do it in? Will it be more in person if you are not online and you have no interest in having a digital presence, which we can talk about more about that later, because that is I have a lot of feelings about that, but we'll save that for another video, whether you should be online or not, or some mix of the two. But for now, figure out what you're already doing. Are you mentoring students? Are you a part of volunteer organizations or professional membership organizations? Do you already post on social media, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever it may be? Do you have a newsletter, a blog? Like, what are you already doing that has helped you meet other people, find new opportunities, and put yourself out there? Whatever that is, start there. And the reason I say start there is because if you are someone where you're wanting to be more strategic about your personal branding, it can be nerve-wracking, right? So it helps to start with what you're already doing. For me, that was LinkedIn. I was already using it daily. I just wasn't really using it strategically, and I wasn't posting as much or at all. So that's where I started. And it got me where I'm at now because by posting consistently on LinkedIn, I stayed top of mind for my boss, Francesca Witzberg. So when she had an opening last September and they needed more assistance at ESCA, she was like, hey, Kimber Marie, she's been looking for a job. Let me reach out to her. That's exactly what happened. And that is usually how a lot of these networking stories tend to go, right? You stay top of mind because you're consistently posting about the things that you value or that you're working towards. And so start where you're at. Now, for those of you who are like, I don't have anything. I'm not posting online. I don't really do a lot of in-person activities maybe, and maybe that's what you're trying to do. The advice still stands, right? What is the path of least resistance? So if you are extremely introverted and the thought of in-person events really freaks you out, my advice would be to consider starting online, because it's easier. It's just easier because you're not actually speaking to people. Yes, there is still the dynamic of interacting with people and communicating, but for people who are shy or very introverted, that is what I would recommend. Start online, pick a platform. LinkedIn's great, and say, I'm going to post once a week, and I'm going to post about this goal every Wednesday at 8 a.m. and just do that for a month, and then maybe try and do twice a week on LinkedIn at 8 a.m. Wednesdays and Fridays, and maybe pick another pillar to talk about. Maybe you start talking about your midterm goal, short-term goal, whatever it is. If you're someone where maybe you're not introverted, you're not shy, but for whatever reason, you just haven't really pursued strategic personal branding and networking, I would do a hybrid. And this is something that I'm trying to work on more now, is doing more in-person networking events and just going to opportunities and events in real life that I find interesting. Do a hybrid. Go find an event that's interesting to you. Maybe it's networking, maybe it's just a lecture series, whatever it is. Go take notes and then turn that into content. You can talk about your experience going there, prepping for it. What did you learn? What did you walk away with? You can also talk about the subjects that were talked about there. What is your own reflection on that? Do your own little research and share that. Both of those are full of value that other people would enjoy reading or watching, whatever medium you choose to share those with. What is the path of least resistance? It's going to look different for everyone, but the goal is to just get started. So how can you do that in a way that you're setting yourself up for success? My next post in my Creating Your Calling Card series is going to be about leveraging tools like LinkedIn. We're going to be going a little bit more in depth about how to leverage the tools you already have to establish your personal brand and achieve your goals. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe for more. You can follow me at Kimber Marie James. And of course, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to have you a part of my LinkedIn community and be a part of yours. Have a great day.